Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today on Garden Hauling. So I wanted to give you a brief update on a couple of things that I am growing in my garden. So here are some cantaloupes that I'm growing. I am also growing some melons, and I am just so happy with how they're doing. The biggest thing is trying to keep them watered because the weather has been so hot lately, and just trying to stay hydrated myself and keep my garden hydrated has really been challenging, but I am so happy with how they're doing. Now I am having an issue with one of my pepper plants, and I wanted to talk about blossom end rot because that's what's happening here. This is blossom end rot, and it looks like a dark bruise, and the bigger it gets, the more sunken it's going to get. And what happens is when blossom end rot occurs, the tissue on the bottom of the fruit breaks down and it begins to rot. The rot won't go away once it starts. But now this pepper here, I can still use it. I can just cut out that part of the rot and use the rest of the pepper. But if it was much bigger, I wouldn't be able to do that. Blossom end rot occurs not only on peppers, it also occurs on eggplants and squash and tomatoes. The good thing about blossom end rot is it is not caused by pest or disease, but it normally occurs when a plant lacks calcium. The soil could be underwatered, it could be overwatered, and I have really been having a problem in this heat watering my plants. So I'm leaning towards the fact that it is underwatered, and so that's what I'm thinking. I mentioned that if you underwater your plants, that could be a reason why your plant is not getting enough calcium, because it needs that water to help it to take up that calcium from the soil. And this can happen if you overwater as well. But now there are other reasons as to why your plants could lack calcium. Too much nitrogen, your soil pH is off, high salt levels in the soil, damage to your plant roots. And then sometimes if it's a newly planted crop, like say a tomato, it can rot, which is normal because the plant may be under stress because you're transplanting it into your garden or either a container. So I have recently installed drip irrigation all over my garden. I had it already laid out, I just hadn't hooked it up, but I have hooked everything up now. I'm hoping that this will help me to be more consistent in my watering. Plants need about 1 inch of water per square foot per week, which this can vary depending on how well your soil drains and how hot it is. So I want to talk about some ways of preventing blossom end rot. So one is to water consistently and evenly. You don't want to overwater if you forget. You want to choose plants that are tolerant of calcium deficiencies. You can use mulch to help to retain soil moisture during dry periods, like I've done here around my pepper plants. Get your soil tested periodically to find out what your soil is deficient in. Calcium may be a deficiency, it may not be a deficiency. If you have soil that is older, then it might be depleted of calcium. So you can add organic soil sources like bone meal, finely crushed eggshells, but be sure to crush them up really fine so that you can add them to your soil. You can also just use compost. There's nothing like adding compost to your garden. The thing I wanted you to take out from this video is don't assume that your soil is deficient in calcium and then fertilize more, because it could be that you might make the situation worse. So just try some of these preventative measures. And something else I wanted to mention, that when you plant your peppers, your tomatoes, your squash or whatever, make sure that you stake them when you first plant them, because if you go back and stake them when they get bigger, you could injure your root system, and that could prevent your plant from taking up calcium from the soil. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for subscribing, and I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.